Hello there, everybody. I am Leon, and I am going to be your nightmare build guide. This is the first in the series. You can see some footage in the background of me taking out the final boss on hard mode, which wasn't too hard, but it has also been nightmare tested and approved. I made it all the way up through Gorefist on Nightmare, which is one of, in my opinion, the harder bosses in the game, along with the final boss, the double fairy one, Exilius or something, whatever her name is. I can't remember how to say it. The Undying King, and then Gorefist. Wow, excuse me. So, let me stop wasting your time and let's get into this build. All right. Welcome back to this, my Ex-Cultist Nightmare build guide. So what this build is all based around is doing damage over time. We have two skills that do heavy damage over time that we can have up basically constantly. That's a bad sentence, but you can have it up all the time. And this will allow you to just run around while things die. Plus, our guns are going to be super powerful. We have two rapid-fire guns, but one of the 30 bullets in each has a chance of doing anywhere from 800 to, I've seen it go up to 1900 damage, which is huge random bursts that can be an ass saver in Nightmare. So let's make this build as quick and painless as possible. We'll start with the gear because that, well, I don't want to say is the most important thing. All of it's important, but what is the most important for this build, obviously, is cultist gear to get the mod power generation back quickly. I'm also going to give alternate options based on your playstyle. The number one thing that could potentially be a pain to get is this Devouring Loop. Critical hit chance. Now, before you have one of the trait lines, this is only going to have 5% chance to deal 300% bonus damage instead of the 20. It's at 20% because of a perk, but this is pretty huge because we also have pretty high critical hit damage thanks to traits. So most of this build is feeding back into this to do high damage to be to have our skills up all the time. So that's what it's all about, that and critical hit chance. So we went with Braided Thorns, which you can get in the first area. Sorry, this is from Courses. You're just going to have to do it until you find it off the ground somewhere, you know, glowing purple in some weird corner. So explore Courses as best you can. You should anyways, because it's got one of the best places to farm scrap and have breakables. All right, moving on. Quick and painless, we said. Braided Thorns you're going to find in the first act. This isn't a random drop. I don't know the name of the dungeon, but it's one of the very first ones, so you can just keep re-rolling your world till you get it right off the bat. Look it up. You have to finish a little quest and then kill this crazy guy, and you get the Braided Thorns. Huge extra 50% critical hit chance anytime we're fighting mobs. Storm Amulet I went with just to get a little bit extra damage because there wasn't a super awesome second. You could definitely go with the Cleansing Jewel for the extra healing and Nightmare. That is huge, being able to remove status effects. And now your health bar is big enough to where you might need that extra 25% and not waste it. Since we're doing mod power generation, if you feel like you're taking a lot of damage, you could also use this, but I didn't think it was that great. And we also build mod, or we generate mod resource so quickly that doesn't really matter. So you can go full cultist so that you can get the 50%, but I found that I still get it pretty quickly, so I'm playing around with having one piece of the Radiant heads, or Radiant set, so we can get even more critical hit chance. I know it's pretty minuscule, so this is another option that you can either have it or don't have it. This is from the last area, Yesha. If you find the Lost Merchant, you can buy the other two pieces of the set from her, and you should if you want this set, because if you go to get the headpiece, which will be in a random dungeon, the boss you fight in that dungeon will come back and kill the Lost Merchant, so you can no longer buy this set until you get out. All right, moving on. Sorry I'm moving so slow. The Guardian Axe, this is another optional thing, but I think it is really useful because obviously we're going for that generation. This gives you more mod generation. But again, you get it so fast that this really isn't necessary. My number 2 recommendation would be Riven, which you get if you don't kill the Undying King and you give him the heart. And the reason I recommend this is for that lifesteal, just to get you a little extra tanky if you're in one of those oh shit scenarios, just smacking people. So I'd say one of these two, whichever you like the best, or if you really want elemental damage. This is really cool, but I wasn't that impressed damage-wise. I'm trying to avoid being in a melee combat scenario with this build anyways. Alright, I went beam rifle and submachine gun. The reason being is because of this devouring loop. We could go with something that has less shots and get even higher damage. I don't know, maybe 2,000-3,000. It would be insane. Huge, big numbers. But I like having the constant steady damage with the random chance of having a 1,700 almost sniper hit level damage. I usually get 2 to 3, sometimes even more, of those to pop off each time. And if they aren't on the weak spot and critical hit chance, I'll put in some footage right here where you can see that kind of damage. If you aren't doing that, you're still going to be doing 300 to 400 damage, which is like having like that pistol or whatever. Submachine gun, if you don't know where this is, look it up. You can get it right off the bat, very beginning of the game after you finish the tutorial. It's really easy. It's downstairs behind a fan that's spinning if you turn off the power. Same reason that I went with beam rifle with that one. Just lots and lots of rapid fire shots for that chance at critical hits. These both will also bring up your skill much faster. As far as skill the swarm, if you don't know what this is definitely one of the most OP builds in the game. What's amazing about this, we have really high critical hit chance, and these are hitting constantly, and they also have critical hit chance. So one thing I do a lot is once these are out, the whole time that they're out, you can't regenerate it. You have 2 charges of it. And so I just swap over to my submachine gun because the damage that this is doing is going to also give you mod power for your wildfire shot. Use these all the time. You have 5 of them, so I almost always engage with them on enemies, and I'll just hit them immediately with it so the fire damage starts. This hits about 25 damage per tick. It's absolutely insane. Alternatives for that, if you just anything that does high damage, if you aren't going to go with the shots, so like the little shotgun, hive cannon's really awesome, or the hunting pistol if you really want to be able to get like those one shots on the weaker enemies. Moving on. Traits. This is what's really going to bring it into next gear. I go full vigor for nightmare mode. I never went full vigor until that because I didn't feel like it was necessary, but you're definitely going to want the health in nightmare. I don't think stamina is all that important because I just got enough of this to have a little bit extra. But I use Mudtooth's potions. I'd also like to say that we're going to go with 185 because this is how many trait rank points I had after finishing both normal and hard, so I think you should be able to get it really easily too. And I'm able to do nightmare content with 185 instead of the extra 14 I have. So yeah, endurance, you want to save that, or your stamina, you want to save as much as possible anyways. You want to hardly be using it unless you're sprinting out of attacks. Then of course, since we're ex-cultist, we're going full into spirit. That way we can get that extra mod generation. Exploiter, obviously we want that extra damage. I only went 10 into Mother's Blessing because I feel like you take range damage less often. What's going to be killing you the most or doing the most damage to you is melee damage, but this little extra reduction for fights where there are lots of ads with ranged is very, very helpful. And I feel like this game does a very good job with its formula. Most attacks are about how long it takes to reload or use any consumable. So I only put 10 into these, both the consumable one and reload, so that it's just enough. It gives you that little bit extra speed to reload and then dodge when you need to. Keeper's Blessing, this is what I'm going to continue to put the rest of my points in at this point, just so I can have that extra elemental resistance that's all over the world. Once again, I'm really careful with my stamina, so I don't really worry about this. Glutton, same thing as Quick Hands. Get that little tiny bit of extra speed so that we can get these off. This is actually really helpful, that 25%. Then this is the main bread and butter. As you can see, proc chance plus 15. So what this means is anything that has a proc chance, not just this devouring loop, whoop, right here, it's going to bring that proc chance up. So if you have anything else that has any sort of proc chance, so that brought this from 5% to 20%. So you're going to be able to see that often. Then you go Executioner, Kingslayer. This is what allows you to get those like 1,700 damage shots from a single round of your automatic weapons. Insane. This is a must. This is a must. Level it whenever you think is necessary, when you really start struggling in the campaign on your way to Nightmare. And then last but not least, Guardian's Blessing. Like I was saying before, that's where we take the most damage. Yeah, so why not? It's a really lame way to end the build video, but that's all you need. I hope you enjoy. I really hope that this works out for you. I also want to mention that I will be running this build next week, that being the first week of September. I'm going to be streaming all week long. Make sure to come tune in and see how this build does in Nightmare. And then from there, I'm going to be trying out a ranged build, and I'm trying to figure out a full melee build that will be Nightmare viable, because other people who are posting their melee builds are just for normal and hard, which I don't find that impressive, because yes, you can abuse these specs that you can just roll and steamroll every part of the game, but I really, really think it would be fun to get a melee build into Nightmare. So keep your eyes out. If you liked this build, if you use it and you end up loving it, please consider coming back for a subscribe, because if you love this build, I have no doubt I'm going to make more builds that you'll love too. So I'll see you next time.